You're listening to The Walking Dead Underground. Now your hosts, Cinik, Igrihe, and Ryan.
And you are listening to the Walking Dead Underground podcast, and I'm your host, Cinik, and joining me, as usual, my co-host, and two men who flat out refuse to save a ton of money by changing their car insurance to Geico, Igrihe and Ryan. And on this week's show, AMC decides it's a great idea to sneak their new show Terror onto our DVRs. Really? And we do a full blow-by-blow account of the long-awaited showdown at Hilltop as we review Season 8, Episode 13, Do Not Send Us Astray. Because we are the Walking Dead Underground podcast, and we cannot stand Henry as much as you do. We open the episode with Morgan seeing a very dead Gavin taunting him. Were you, like I was, yelling at Gavin to get the hell out of here? I mean, the last thing our good friend Morgan needs is a tour guide through Crazy Town.
Yeah, he's got crazy on lockdown. And having to have a dude with a hole in his throat standing there taunting him, just taunting repeatedly. Is there any call for that, Walking Dead? Come on. We already know Morgan is like right on the edge of losing it at any given time, and he was already showing he's down the crazy path. Why do we have to add to that crazy? I mean, is this stuff we should have been seeing from Morgan all along? Is this something that happens every time that this goes on, that Morgan is seeing people that he ineffectually or somehow had their demise come to them? Maybe this is something we're just finally getting a look at, but I don't know. It seemed overkill to add crazy to the crazy that is Morgan.
Well, and I go through this a lot myself. Whenever I try to diet, a tub of Ben & Jerry's pops up in front of me and taunts me like, hey, you want to go to the store and get me. You know what this is supposed to be.
Fucking donkey monkey, man.
Oh, I'll tell you, that one sweet roll, they'll do you in every single time. Ryan, you know what this is. You know what this was supposed to be. What do you think Gavin was trying to tell Morgan?
My kind of cynical thought was just it obviously, clearly it has to do with Morgan leaving the show. And it was, so I couldn't get past that. So I didn't like it. I think Morgan's enough of a head case that we don't need him seeing visions of dead people to know that he's always on the verge of snapping. So I thought it was kind of redundant and unnecessary. And if anything, it was more just like, oh, here's some foreshadowing. Morgan's going to have to leave for some reason because he's going to be on another show. And it just kind of took me out of it a little bit.
Wouldn't that be great for Gavin, though, if Morgan had to bring him with him over to Fear of the Walking Dead? I mean, like, what a good game. He comes into work. They're like, listen, dude, Jason, you're dying this episode, but you're going to be in Morgan's head for the rest of the season, and you get a full season of Fear of the Walking Dead. IG, why on these shows are people never haunted by a friendly or even helpful ghost? I mean, have Kirkman and Gimple never heard of Casper?
I guess not. There's helpful ghosts all over, or at least my wife tends to believe so. I'm not a big believer in ghosts myself. There's too many people out there that are just like, oh, but I have felt the presence of different things. You just don't know because you've never felt it. And I'm like, no, I don't know because it's complete and utter bullshit. But I digress. It does seem like any of these kind of shows always has like somebody going to taunt you. They never want to do anything useful except drive you into absolute lunacy. And when you're already crazy, what's the point? It seemed like wasted time on a character that we all know is going to leave. And that's where my problem with it was. I love Morgan. I love him as a character. I love the actor himself, but we're marking time. Like, have him do something on his way out rather than just walk around crazy with a ghost following and telling him, you know what you did.
Well, just once. I would like a ghost to maybe help you find your car keys or make you a sandwich. I mean, if there's anybody out there in the audience that's in the know or writes a show, I'll never stop talking about that show. If you could just have a ghost come by and do somebody's taxes, something helpful just for once, rather than keep you up at night with strange noises. Ryan, in wrestling terms, how well does Lenny sell the mental anguish, which is Morgan Jones?
I mean, he sells it well, which is why we didn't need a ghost there. He does a great job of it himself. So I think, if anything, I would like him to do something different with him. He's always dealing with some kind of mental anguish. He's always dealing with something that, he just always is on the verge of snapping. And I think we don't need to see that from him. And I'm hoping that, on Fear the Walking Dead, that it's not that there's some evolution to his character, because he's a wonderful actor and he does sell the character really well. But, let's give him something more meaty to work with than just, okay, he's brooding and he's upset about something and he's going to snap. When he goes into Terminator mode, that's some of the best stuff on the show.
Oh, I agree, but he doesn't need to quite be on the verge of insanity to do that. I mean, maybe it's written into the character bylaws, but be interesting to see if he carries this over to the next show as well. I mean, do we need to introduce an interesting but pre-damaged character into the Fear of the Walking Dead world?
Is he going to be a pre-staff or a post-staff, Morgan? That's what I'm wondering.
The previews have him carrying the staff. I don't know how they're going to handle this. I don't know if there's going to be a time jump. I'm not quite sure whether they're going backwards. He is wearing the same outfit in the previews that when he found Rick and the gang, he was wearing then. So whether he has that in a closet waiting to dust off to find more people, or we're going backwards in time, who knows? IG, did it bother you a little bit when everyone else in the zombie apocalypse has a car horn? Good old Daryl Dixon has an air horn. I mean, is Daryl the biggest one-upper in the zombie apocalypse?
Isn't it always that way with Daryl? Like, he can't drive a car. He's always got to ride a motorcycle. I don't need protection like doors, even though these things can literally turn me into one of them with a scratch or a bite. Why would he want doors? That's just crazy. He's going to ride around in his vest with his arms flailing out. It seems smart. He's going to one-up everybody every single time.
Country Mac from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia was the baddest motherfucker alive, and a speed bump took him out. I don't know if I'd be riding around the apocalypse with things diving out at you or people shooting at you maybe without a car. I mean, get yourself a slingshot or something, for Christ's sake. Something with a little bit of coverage. The kid wants to fight, but Carol tells Henry if he goes outside, he's going to die. Maybe Laurie should have used this tactic with Carl. Ryan, does it in fact take a village to scare the shit out of a child?
Not when the plot requires it not to, I guess. That's, it's one of the situations where I think, again, you can kind of see where it was going. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know I mean, we'll talk a little bit about where it leads to, but I mean, these kids are, obviously they're growing up in the zombie apocalypse. So it's a little bit different from how you or I grew up, but they seem a little too eager to go out and fight. And I don't think that I, at that age, would have been eager to go out and fight a bunch of adults with machine guns and, zombie blood and guts coated weapons. I'd be happy to stay inside and, quote, protect everybody else.
Yeah, if I was a little kid, I'd want no part of zombies and guns, and I'd be like, let me stay inside with the Transformers, and you guys go out and shoot at each other, and I'll hope somebody make me a cheese sandwich, let's hope. IG, Dr. Dana gives Cinik the business. I mean, could it be his worst first day on a job ever? But is she right? In her experience, people who don't know enough are more dangerous than people who don't know shit?
That could be very well true, but, you haven't even given the guy a chance, and maybe he can do something. And especially he does have some medical training and experience. So he's got to be useful somewhere. And is he more useful there trying to help people like survive? Or is he more useful out with a stick in his hand trying to kill bad guys? I think, we got to use people where their strengths lie.
Exactly. I mean, if you need a random quote about some sort of death prayer, Siddiq's your guy. Ryan, why is it that you feel that people need to feel to test someone when they come on a new job? Have you ever experienced this? And were you impressed with Siddiq's pushback and the fact that he might have gained her respect?
Yeah, sure. I mean, you see it all the time. I think in being in fitness and in martial arts, you definitely come up with into situations where when you meet somebody, there's a sense of community, but also competition amongst other trainers and other, coaches or martial artists. And so you definitely have a situation where somebody will want to, in Muay Thai, like they'll want to spar with you or see what you got. And it is their way of friendly, but not so friendly, like testing you, seeing what you have. The same thing, in fitness, like people want to know, what you're capable of, and we'll test you and to see how you respond and how you react to that. I think Cinik did handle it well. I thought it was kind of almost like the writers had a clever line and they were gonna make it work no matter what, because it did seem a bit forced, come on, he's got medical experience in this world. That's worth everything. And she's going to give him a hard time. Like, come on. I don't know. I just felt like, all right, clever, nice little line, but come on, did you really have to manufacture this? You couldn't come up with a better situation to use that line?
IG, you're long in the tooth. I mean, you were in the military, you're part of the TSA. Have you ever personally experienced people testing you when you walked into your first day of a job?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's especially in jobs that are more stressful, you get a lot more of the testing. Like my current job, not so much. You don't test people because when you test people when they're driving for a living, they tend to do stupid things and get in accidents, and we don't want any part of that. But in military especially, you're going to want to know what you're dealing with. Even if they fail at what you're testing them with, it's good to know, because then you know what they can handle, what can they do. So running that test by him and seeing if he was just going to turn around and cry and run off like somebody, kicked his dog, that was probably actually a pretty good thing. Now, it was a little cruel, but you know what? It got something done very quickly that if you took the nice way to do it, might have taken weeks to get through. So you got something done in minutes rather than weeks, and that's a win. And they are in that kind of situation where you need to get things done quickly and assess what you've got quickly.
My job's a lot like that too. They'll freeze somebody out when they first get there. They won't talk to them. They won't be very nice to them. And in most situations, I disagree with it. But I guess if you're heading into almost a foxhole situation, which they were, the saviors were coming and they were coming to do harm. I guess testing somebody to see if they've got the mental fortitude to be there when you need them to probably isn't necessarily the worst thing that you could do to somebody. Tension's being built. Some great background music, and Maggie announces, "Here we go." In my personal opinion, a great Batman callback. The saviors come with Simon in the lead. IG, you spoke last week about how the bad guys they snatch all the good lines. And Simon referring to the spike strips on the road as offending articles. Even though he's clearly angry, he's clearly insane, but he's using words like offending articles. Does Simon just flat out scare the shit out of you?
Undoubtedly. Undoubtedly, he scares the shit out of me, and I love it. And that's the thing. I mean, Simon and Negan both have just the amount of charisma and fear that they can just portray through the screen, where yes, it's scary, but yes, I want to watch every single thing they do. It's just amazing how that much charisma and like leadership and how able and willing they are to take these people and just lead them through the fires of hell, and they're willing to follow just by how they act and how they speak. I mean, and they don't run from stuff most of the time either. And that says a lot about your leadership when they're going to stand right there with you.
Maggie Reed, the widow, has some great back and forth with Simon, the psychotic leader of the Saviors. Both very strong performances. Maggie claims she's got 38 bullets, one for each of the hostages. Simon gives no fucks, referring to them as damaged goods and flat out screw them. Ryan, do you believe for a second that Maggie would start putting people down one by one? And would you?
I mean, at this stage, I think she would. I think she has a bit of a one-track mind, and she even kind of confirmed that to an extent. So I didn't really put it past her. I think, would I? Probably not, unless, it was absolutely necessary to save my people. But otherwise, like, I would like to think I wouldn't do it. Although, who knows? Because what do you do with them? You if they're a burden on your resources, maybe it's better to get rid of them versus send them back to the savior. So I don't know, but I definitely believed her in that moment.
I would hope that she wouldn't, but some of these people in Rick's group are starting to skew the way of the saviors. I mean, last week they were kind of debating on whether they were just going to straight up jack Georgie and all of her stuff. So it makes you wonder, if this goes on long enough, are we going to be able to tell the difference between the two crews? IG, Gregory, always there to kick you when you're down, turns to Maggie and says, "Did you really expect that cockamamie plan to work? If you're a Maggie at that point, would you just toss him off that second-story balcony? I mean, enough of this guy already, right?"
I might have given him a quick pistol whip, or a backhand. I mean, if you got some extra baby powder laying around, maybe a little pimp slap, something. But to let him stand there and just run his mouth again, that's not going to happen anymore. There'd have to be some kind of comeuppance every time he opened his mouth. And I don't know why they continue to let him get away with it, because I don't see the point. But they do, and they're going to continue to let him do it, and I don't know why. Hopefully, some cool shit will start happening to him, because I think it would be righteous, and I think it would be hilarious.
Xander just plays that role so well. And this is something I want to get into with you guys, because it kind of drives me a little crazy with the internet fandom, where they're like, "I hate that guy." You hate that guy because he's doing his job. He's being a good actor. That drives me insane when people do that. They're like, well, I just hate Gregory. Well, you're supposed to hate Gregory. He's a deplorable character. They cast him in that light. He's a coward. He just backtalks people. He'll stab you. He's underhanded. He's doing his job. And doesn't it kill you guys that people just can't differentiate that they're acting? These are roles.
Well, it's kind of like, it reminds me of pro wrestling. Like you've got like, a heel is supposed to get heat, right? Typically, like that's what's supposed to happen. They're supposed to get people to not like them. But then you have what they would term X-Pac heat, which was when like they were supposed to get the heat, but people just didn't like them. And so I think in his case, he's not getting X-Pac heat. He's getting legitimate, like he's doing his job and he's doing it really well. No one likes him. I want to see the character die because he's doing such a great job. It's not like, Laurie or some other characters who you just don't like because I don't know whether it's performance or the writing, like it's just not working, it's not connecting, and you just want to see them gone because there's just nothing there.
Because they suck. No, you don't like him because you're supposed to not like him. He's made bad decision after bad decision after bad decision that has all been written for him to make. And what's he supposed to do? Start ad-libbing it and making good decisions and make himself likable? That's not the show. They would replace him in a heartbeat or just kill him off and get somebody else to come in and play an asshole. And that's the thing. This actor is doing an amazing job in that role. And I love the actor. I think he's great. I've seen him in a few other things. He does a great job everything he's in, but he does this kind of weasel acting amazingly. It's in his wheelhouse to play that type of role. And I'm glad that they've got him. I'm glad that he's there, but I still want to see someone pimp slap him.
Dwight warned Simon about going rogue. This isn't what he wanted, and he could still be out there. IG, Simon responds with, it's better to beg for forgiveness than ask for permission, D. Do you think if at any point Negan tries to show up, maybe Simon tries to do him in? Has he gone too far?
At this point, I don't think he tries to do him in unless he somehow knows that Simon fucked up at the trash heap. If he finds that out ahead of time, then yeah, Simon's going to take a go. But I think that Simon is still playing dumb and in the know, like he thinks he's up and got everybody fooled. So he would just go, hey, welcome back, boss, and try and play like everything's okay and probably get killed very easily by Negan. That's what I think is coming, and I don't want it to, because Simon is a great character as well. It's played magnificently. The actor does an amazing job, and I can't get enough of that character. He just, every time he smiles with that just menacing smile that is all teeth, I just am wondering what's the next fucking cool thing he's going to do, because that's all he does is cool shit kind of most of the time.
Well, I saw a meme the other day that said, I wish that anybody would look at me like Stephen Ogg looks at anything, because he always has that wide-eyed, amazed look on his face. The cool thing about Simon is I can't wait to see what he's going to say next. I sometimes rewind over and over again to be, what did he just say? And try to understand why they took that route with his dialogue. He's definitely one of the more interesting written people on TV. Ryan, what do you think? I mean, Negan shows up at this point. Simon's got a lot of explaining to do, right?
I think Simon's all in. As far as if Negan comes back, I think it's him or Negan. That quote to me didn't make sense because you don't ask for forgiveness from Negan. You will pay the price, and as many people can attest to, it's not pleasant. So I think at this stage that he's all in, and if and when Negan comes back, I think we will see some kind of confrontation with Simon possibly instigating it or initiating it, because I just don't see. It's too many things. He's kind of taken too many steps against Negan at this point, and I just don't see. I don't see how he comes back from it.
Rambo Dixon drives his motorcycle one-handed, shooting saviors by the dozens. Ryan, at this point, if he's playing D&D, is he wearing full plate plot armor?
Yeah. I mean, at this point, that it is one of the annoying things about the show is when you get some of these inconsistencies. And yeah, it's kind of ridiculous when you've got in darkness, the saviors are landing, arrow shots on, people with machine guns. And yet Daryl can drive through unscathed on a motorcycle, where Rick is, an expert marksman when shooting zombies in the head, but can't hit, Negan with the machine gun. Like, those are some of the things like that just are frustrating. Just be consistent. And yeah, this is a situation where it's unrealistic, but just accept it. Like, none of the important characters are going to die until they need them to die, and then they'll overplay it. It's just kind of part of the show and par for the course at this point.
Hilltop saves the gate by drawing them in and then crashing them into a school bus, which bottlenecks the Savior's charge. The war is finally on, and the Coalition has a plan. IG, what did you think of the Hilltop defense?
Well, I can tell you from first-hand experience that school bus would absolutely stop all the rest of that traffic from coming in. They are built to take a beating. I don't think people understand like how tough those fucking things are. But I was surprised that they didn't get more casualties of the Saviors, because they literally just came in like they were lemmings. They had them all like locked into a tight area and easy pickings. What I also couldn't believe is that the Saviors just decided to fall in line and walk in there. Like, do you not see the fact that you're all being funneled into a tight space? You're going to take heavy casualties. It's like nobody there like even played any video games and realized that might be a bad idea, let alone have military experience and go, no, that's an ambush. I can see it. We don't have to go there for them to trip it on us. That's bad. Let's not do that. It confused me on both sides, because it seemed like the Saviors made a bad decision by going in, and it seemed like the people at the Hilltop made a bad decision by not laying everything they had into it, because they were all right there just for the taking. That being said, it didn't seem like, at least at the beginning, that the Hilltop took very many casualties. They took some, but not anywhere near what they had taken in previous engagements with the Saviors. And we have to remember that here at the Hilltop is where they have a lot of people that are basically farmers. They're not combatants. They're not people that have training. There are some, because you got some of the people from the other communities to come there, but most people are not battle ready, as I guess would be a good term.
Yeah, Ryan, what was more surprising to you? The fact that they all charged in, or the fact that any of them survived to get back out? They really did have a tight bottleneck there.
Yeah, both. And that was what is frustrating, because on one hand, I really loved that scene. I thought it was the right amount of tension, it was the right length, the right amount of drama. So I actually really enjoyed the scene for what it was. But then, like, when you start really picking it apart, it's a mess. Like, yeah, the Saviors obviously went in there without a plan. Like, they just thought they'd overwhelm them with force. They were clearly being lured into a trap. It made absolutely no sense. And then, yeah, once they open fire, like, they should have all been mowed down. So it didn't make sense. I mean, it looked like a couple died, but they were largely able to get out unscathed, which again just made absolutely no sense given the kind of logistics of that situation. Like, how do you avoid that kind of like rapid fire? It just doesn't make any sense. So I think, I loved the scene kind of emotionally, and it hit all the right beats. But yeah, upon a little scrutiny, it's like, well, again, we fall into the same issues that we always fall into, which is just really not well written. Doesn't make none of the character choices in that really make any sense.
We're doing this thing again because we did the same thing at the prison. There was one showdown at the prison, and it was over in the comic books. And this was supposed to be the final showdown at Hilltop, and the Negan storyline concluded. And it looks like this may get split up into another section. I don't know why this wasn't the finale. I think I would have ended on this note. I don't know, and I'm not sure what they have yet to come. I mean, we've gone astray now. Negan is with Jadis, which Jadis doesn't live in the comic book. So I'm not quite sure where they're headed, but I did like the battle. There was parts of it I truly didn't understand, but it didn't take away from the intensity of the battle and the fact that we got to see the Coalition actually get a little bit of a win. Ryan, you were advocating a little while ago that Maggie should start putting bullets in hostages. Al, the savior with the heart of gold. begs her to let me to help defend this place. I have no loyalty to this people. If you're Maggie, do you hand Saviors the gun and just hope for the best?
He seems earnest. So I might hand him the gun. I don't know that I would hand any of the other Saviors the gun. I don't know that anyone else has been able to earn trust. But I think, he can only do so much damage, and he does seem earnest. So I think I would hand him, but I don't think you can trust the entire group.
Well, and that's the trick. How do you decide? I mean, even though he's earnest, is he just a good actor? How do you decide? Like, you have to decide after this. You have to decide by his actions and what he's willing to do after this. If he's willing to sell out his buddies, if he's willing to do whatever work is necessary to try and help whoever's still there. It's in the midst of that battle, handing him a gun at that point, pretty poor decision making, even if he is, in fact, trying to help. Just because you have no way of vetting that information. You have no way of knowing. I mean, no matter what for, say, a military application, you have guys that are waving the white flag saying, we want to be on your side. We hate these guys and everything. You still take them prisoner. You still bring them in. You still interrogate them. You don't necessarily waterboard them, but, we have the Geneva Convention and the U.S. follows it. So you treat them well. You feed them. You take care of them. You take care of any medical things, but you don't hand them weapons. Let them fight on your side. That's just something you don't do.
Well, Ryan, would you take the Hans Gruber tactic and maybe hand him a weapon with no bullets in it and let him pretend to shoot? And if he doesn't turn the gun on you, maybe he is on your side?
No, I think at that point of battle, you either give him or you don't. Like, I don't think, it's not a time to test people. So, I think that, you can do it later. So I think, if she's going to trust him, she's got to trust him there. If she's not, then, you lock him up and figure it out later. But I don't think at that point, there's no time to like test him and see what he's going to do.
Okay, you can give him a rake. He can have a rake. He can use that.
Not a pitchfork, but a rake. You're going to draw the line between. All right, I got it.
A plastic rake, not a metal rake.
To prove that we're not going to lose just red shirts in this battle, Carol's ex Tobin goes down. She makes the save, but he's gravely wounded. And Simon has his sights set on Tara. IG, Dwight pops up and little bighorns Tara just as Simon's about to shoot her. Was he trying to save her from being shot, or do you think he was taking a legitimate shot at her? I'm
still believing that he was trying to save her because I don't think he has any weapons that have been messed with. I don't think any of his bullets or anything else is coated in zombie blood. And I think he's just trying to buy time because I think he's still trying to subvert the Saviors from the inside. I think he truly believes that they are the wrong way and that they've done enough bad things to good people that they deserve to no longer exist. And I'm just waiting to be proven right because I know that like Tara wanted him dead, Dwight wanted him dead, Daryl wanted him dead. I know he's Dwight. not Dwight wanted him dead. But it's going to come to fruition that he's going to make some huge play that's going to save them all. And I think that's going to happen. And I think he might die in the process, but it would still prove the point.
Ryan, you're kind of a realist like me. Simon has his back turned to Dwight. Why doesn't he just end this? Simon being out of the picture probably ends the battle, right?
I don't know that it ends the battle, but it does potentially chop off the head. I think Dwight is going to go for the, kind of path of least resistance, at least until he gets back to the hilltop and to safety. So I think that with Negan still potentially out there, maybe he's just covering himself and waiting it out. But you're right. I mean, it is a good point. He could have ended it, or at least could have, done significant damage. So I'm not quite sure why he didn't take him out, but maybe he also potentially, let's say he's seen by another savior. You'd think that other saviors would try to take over and at least control some kind of a retreat and regroup. So I think he's again like kind of taking path of least resistance there and waiting for the right time to make his big move.
More interesting and effective hilltopper tactics as they shoot out all the lights, funnel them in the direction they want, turn the lights on and pop up and take a bunch of them out. Great hit and run tactics by lesser force. As far as that part of the battle, I was extremely sold on what they were doing. I thought it was besides the bottleneck issue, I thought it was well choreographed. Or I was surprised that anybody even survived the whole flip on the lights and pop up from the windows thing. I really like the way that this battle was done. IG, more importantly, Rick carries an impressive 6-shot revolver and yet never runs out of bullets. His team shows up with a machine gun and he runs out after half a clip. What the fuck?
You know, why do they do that? Do they just want to see? I think that's got to be it. They just want to see Rick wielding that big Colt Python around. That's all they want to see is that big, stainless steel 6-shooter crazy thing. That's all ever. It's like if he's not holding that, that's not really Rick. So it's like, hey, you get 4 shots with this big machine gun with a full magazine full of whatever. You can have 4 shots and then it's going to run out or jam or something. And then you pull the other thing out and headshot nothing because these are living people, so you can't shoot them. I'm just trying to figure out, is there some weird MPAA type rating or something going on for this show that you're not allowed to headshot actual people because somebody might go, no, now it's rated R and we can't put that on at 8:00 at night on a almost network television show. It just seems just like Ryan said earlier, it seems almost ludicrous that he can headshot zombies 10 out of 10 times and can't even wing a savior. Doesn't hit him anywhere.
The saviors flee the interview, and Maggie's extremely disappointed because she wants them all dead. Ryan, where does this battle rank amongst all the other major fights that we've seen on the show, like Alexandria, like the prison?
I'd have to revisit them in some ways to see if maybe how logically messy they were, because I really enjoyed this one. I think this right up there as far as just from a guttural base feeling, like how I felt watching it. I definitely felt the tension, I felt the intensity of it. It had the right kind of dramatic beats, so I really did enjoy it. I think it showed Maggie's kind of ingenuity. The saviors again were a little too cocky. And I think it establishes Maggie as a leader, and if she wasn't already established. But I really enjoyed certain aspects. It was so logically messed up that does take away from it. So I almost would want to go back and revisit some of those other big battle scenes to see if like they suffered from the same issues, and maybe I just looked past it, or maybe if they were just kind of structured a little bit better.
I can tell you right now, until they get a tiger attacking somebody, it's still going to be at least second. That Alexandria battle with a tiger coming in to save the day, that you just have a hard time beating that. They're going to need to get some bear riding a tricycle attacking people to beat it, I think.
That'd be pretty slow unless it was on pavement, though, no?
Well, they do have some roads they fight on, so it might still work, especially if you get them going downhill.
In an odd turn of events, Dwight begged Tara. Dwight pleaded with Tara, but it took him shooting her with an arrow for her to finally admit, hey, maybe Dwight's not such a bad guy, and if Rick found him first, maybe he would be different. That completely destroys the memes from last week about Tara yelling that you can't just change sides, because we all know that she did that. I mean, Tara's beef with Dwight is now squashed. Daryl, not so much. But IG, she's talking sense. She's finally starting to sound like the moral conscience. Did you think something might have been up?
Well, you know what's up when you talk sense and become the moral conscience? Your time is almost up. So Tara's going to die. And I mean, I can't believe that she didn't fully die, because she was on The Talking Dead last night. And when they said Alana Masterson was going to be there in one of the commercials, I'm like, oh, Tara's actually going to die. And then she didn't, which was like highly disappointing. And I don't know as that one is how they write the character, because maybe I just don't like Alana Masterson. Maybe. I don't know. I mean, I guess if that's how the character is supposed to be portrayed, maybe, because I didn't watch The Talking Dead after, because it came on pretty late after they had that new thing come on that I just wasn't into. But maybe she's supposed to be awful. And if so, she nails it if she's supposed to be awful.
I didn't quite understand that. Now, we're going to jump off topic here for a second, because, all right, everybody sets their TiVo up because very few people get to watch it live. And it says The Walking Dead for 2 hours. But it wasn't The Walking Dead for 2 hours. It was The Walking Dead for a little over an hour, and then some new show that they decided that is actually going to be a 2-hour show, but they're going to show us the first hour. Did either one of you guys understand this ploy? I mean, if your show's good, that people are going to watch it, you could just say, all right, it's following The Walking Dead. We're going to give you an extended preview. Ryan, what the fuck?
I didn't notice that there were 2 hours on my DVR. I just what they were like, scenes from the next episode at the commercials. So I just started fast forwarding, and I started noticing, okay, wow, this is like, it's like 5-10 minutes. It usually doesn't record 5-10 minutes in. Then I look back and I was like, oh wait, it's 2 hours. So then I was like, wow, this is ridiculous. Like, how dumb do they think we are? Like, I'm just gonna sit here and watch the show because it just reeks of corporate marketing BS that makes me now not want to watch the show because they're shoving it. It's like when Apple like force downloaded U2 onto our iPhones. Like, I immediately deleted it because it's like, no, don't push that on me. I'll watch it or listen if I want to listen, or I'll watch if I want to watch. Now I'm not going to watch the show because AMC is trying to force me to watch it.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, like, do the DVR downloads and everything count toward their metrics, toward their numbers of how many people watched the preview of this new show, The Terror? Really? That's how you're going to get watches? That's what you're going to sell to advertisers? Is we tricked our entire audience into recording 2 hours of TV so that we gave them an hour of this show. So we forced people to watch an hour of The Terror. So buy advertising from us. Come on. That was just dirty.
I didn't get it. They've failed time and time again to come up with a show to follow The Walking Dead, Hell on Wheels, Low Winter's Sun, but they've never gone to this lengths to try to push something on us. And I was really annoyed that they held the previews for the next show up into the mid-commercial break because everybody's fast forward to those previews. I didn't quite understand it. Anyway, we'll jump back on topic. It's finally over. They bury their dead. But at what point do we run out of room at Hilltop to start burying people? Isn't this enough already? And wait, hold that thought. Ryan, some powerful acting from Lauren Cohen. She admits that she lured the saviors here. That was her hope all along, because the last thing she wanted Negan to see was Glenn's grave, and that the only thing she regretted was Negan not being in that pile of bodies. After the performances we've seen this season, how strong she's been in the lead, do you think it's crazy that they may let her walk or just kill the character off and not have her on next season?
Yeah, it is crazy. She's proven herself to be a far better leader than Rick ever was. She's both tactically or kind of militarily, just as a leader, as somebody to motivate people. She is clearly, light years ahead of Rick. And I don't know if that was something that was intentional or, if it was over time or how it happened, but she really is. So the fact that they haven't signed her to next year is mind-boggling because, honestly, if she's not around, I don't know where I don't know how you write yourself out of that with them, practically in shambles and needing somebody who has the right balance of kind of morality, but also, that realism and the, the idea that sometimes you do have to do, the thing that doesn't feel right in order to get by in this world. And I think they really need her as an actress and as a character for the show moving forward. It would be a really devastating loss, more so than Rick. Like, I think Rick can die this season and the show moves forward if she's still there and leading. Where she's gone, I think it really hurts the show.
Tobin and Carol have a profound conversation about the war, what they're fighting for, and what the end of it means. Tobin states the end of the fight is what we're fighting for. Carol tells him it just means that maybe we get tomorrow, maybe we get one more night, but after that there's no guarantees. IG, put yourself in their situation with all this going on every single day. At what point are you just done? At what point is it a wrap? Morgan said at one point, you're either going to get torn apart by teeth or by bullets. How much of this can one person stand?
Well, that's the conundrum, because if you really believe that there is nothing else, that there is no future, then why are you doing this? You have to believe that there's an end, that you can get to a point where life can return to at least some form of normalcy. Because if you can't, there's no point in continuing to go. There's no point in continuing to try to win another battle. At that point, you need to concede. You need to just whatever you want to do, man, because at least then you can gain some form of what is the new normalcy. And I agree with them to a point, but they're on the verge of, at least in this encounter, like putting themselves in the win column, like finishing off the saviors, because the saviors have been taking so many chances that their numbers are dwindling, and they're dwindling fast. And the only problem with that is that they've all been hiding out in their little camps so much that they don't know how fast it's dwindling, how on edge they really are. I'm hoping that, they continue to fight and get a win and actually get a little bit of cohesion, because that's what they're lacking. Is they are all still at least a little bit fighting as three separate groups rather than one big group.
Well, they started out with 38 people in the cell. Who knows how many prisoners there are now? I mean, we see Arat is now locked up with everybody else. And Cinik tries to talk to Rick and dress his wound, and he brings up Carl and he talks about the prayer of the dead. Rick isn't having it. Ryan, do you think deep down Rick blames Cinik a little bit for Carl's death, or is it just too sore of a subject where he's not talking about it with anybody?
I think a little bit of both, because we could see that, he's even avoiding Michonne. I think he's actively kind of avoiding having to really deal with it, and especially deal with it with the person. But, clearly he's there has to be an object or a person that he can assign blame to. And Cinik is the easiest one. I think it's too raw for him to blame himself, even though, not that he would rightfully be right in blaming himself, but it is part of the world. And so, I think he's not at a point where he can really look internally, and so he has to find an external source. And at this point, it's got to be Cinik. I think it's a little bit of both. I think part of it is just him not wanting to deal with it, but also part of it is that he sees Cinik as a person. If Cinik doesn't show up, Carl's probably still alive, and that's what it is, whether or not you can blame him. So I think, to answer your question, I think it's a little bit of both.
I don't want to paint the rest of the show with a cynical brush. I really don't. But there was parts coming up that I just sat there and squinted at my TV, because it turns out they went through with Egan's plan, and the wounded, even though they're not life-threatening wounds, are now infected, which Tobin wakes up and creates a few walkers. The Hilltoppers are fast asleep with the door open. No one hears the 5 walkers stumbling through, moaning and groaning. No one hears the walker fall down the stairs. IG, we were just at war 5 minutes ago, were we not? I understand the premise, because they've done this before, but was this some of the most sloppy writing in the series?
Oh, the plot armor. It was just so sloppy, because when these things are going on and you were just in a battle and they escaped, you might still be kind of sleeping pretty lightly, anticipating the next recoil, the next thing to come back in. And why on earth would you ever not have probably what we used to call 50% security, right? Where half sleep, half are watching to make sure nothing's going on, right? That way, if something happens, the half that are awake have no problem waking up the half that are asleep, and you're back at full force. Why are they like 98% asleep and 2 people are awake, like, juicing oranges or whatever the fuck they were doing? They were doing nothing. They were just wasting time. And I just can't believe, and especially falling down the stairs, like, who wouldn't? Not one person woke up from that. Nobody there is a light sleeper. That just is plot armor to the extreme. And we need to make this more aggressive than would be believable. And I'm sorry, even in the apocalypse, even in Georgia, even with no air conditioning, normal people are just too freaked out by sleeping with the door open. It's just not going to happen, at least not the front door to the building. Maybe the bedroom door, sure. Front door, not going to happen. They're going to close that. It all baffled me. It all made me kind of just cringe and kind of sit back for a second, because that was too much. That bothered me extensively.
Yeah, everything about that scene pissed me off. And where the first half, logic aside, I would have given it a strong rating. It pissed me off, because for any number of reasons. First of all, okay, you've got the saviors who clearly have, yes, they've lost some of their arms, but they're armed and they're attacking you with crossbows and melee weapons. Maybe that, not once did you think, maybe they're stabbing us with tainted weapons. And then we've seen the process of somebody dying in this world. And so they have a massive fever. It's very clear that they're going to die before they die. So how is it that you still allow people in that state to sleep amongst a giant group of people? None of that made sense. So all of a sudden, now it's gonna, they're just gonna look like they're somewhat sick and maybe have a fever, but then we're not really gonna know that they're about to die. So that whole thing pissed me off. And not to mention the fact that, as Zig said, 98% of them are sleeping at this point, even though they were just attacked. And who knows if they're not, if the saviors don't come back a second time, so now they're all asleep, all in the same spot, and nobody can hear walkers falling all over the place and, doing their walker grunt and all. It just, none of that made sense and really, really left a sour taste in my mouth.
Well, if that wasn't enough, Brian, Henry's got a gun.
Oh, God.
Gregory and Al try to talk him out of it. But somehow he has the key to the lock and nobody's guarding the prisoners. I mean, he could have killed the whole bunch of them just by sticking his gun through but instead he opens it up. And by the way, in that scene, even though as convoluted as the logic was of him opening the gate and letting everybody out, some great acting from our friend Josh Michael, who plays Jared. He was on all episode. I sent him a message after the show. I appreciated, just the little faces he was making, the little lines they gave him about, as everybody's dying in the house, he's just smiling like, yep, music to my ears. And the fact that he leads the escape at least saved that portion of it to me. Rick puts two and two together and realizes that Deacon's bat was covered in blood and maybe some of the weapons might have been tainted. And Tara. Ryan, is this the litmus test to whether which team Dwight is actually on? I mean, and do you think his weapon might have been tainted?
Yes and no. I think it is a litmus test, and I don't think it was tainted. I think if it's tainted, clearly that he has to show that he's going along with everything. But I do think that we'll find out that she's not going to die, which will piss me off too. Because so she's okay, but everybody else turns. So hopefully they don't piss me off even further. But I think she won't die. I think that Dwight is on their side still, and I think it'll all work out.
What do you think, IG? Do you think he's bowing dirty?
I think that he did not taint his weapon. That's honestly what I think, that he's running with clean weapons so that he could look like he was doing the dirty, but didn't actually have to do it. I think he purposely shot her in somewhere that wasn't going to cause any real damage to her. And I could possibly think by the end of the episode, she didn't show to be having any fever, anything else going on. So all of that lends to the fact that I think that he's attempting to subvert the saviors. I think he's really part of Team Rick or part of the old gang up there. And he's just doing what he can until he can either subvert the saviors from the inside or get back to that team. So I think it's just, it remains to be seen, but she's not showing any signs, and she was in the battle, got injured right along the same time as everyone else. So if she was going to turn, she'd be showing signs by now. So I think Tara for now is safe, not going to die, unfortunately, because then maybe we get a better strong woman in there to maybe stand up along with all the other strong women, with Carol and Maggie and everything, because there's great women written on this show, and Tara's just not been one of them, and it's kind of working on me a little bit. But I don't think that he did anything to hurt the group. I think he did it on purpose. It was a choice.
Well, some of the saviors stayed, including Al. IG, do you trust him? And what do you think happened to Henry? I mean, after it was all over, they were looking around and he's nowhere to be found.
Well, I think the ones that stayed had ample opportunity to leave. So you can trust them a little more than you could have during the height of the battle. I think they took Henry with them. I think that Henry is going to be another hostage for the saviors. And maybe, just maybe, they're going to put him in a box and send him back. I hope not. I hope that they don't kill both Benjamin and Henry in the same 2 seasons. But I guess if I were a savior trying to get my point across, I might put him in a box and send him back.
Yeah, if you're under 18 on this show, your time is limited. Enid, better watch out. Ryan, as the graves line up on Hilltop, Maggie stares off in the distance and her last words are, the cost. Now that she's revealed that this was all her master plan, do you think she's blaming it herself? What were your thoughts on the episode and your rating?
It doesn't seem like she was blaming herself. I think it almost sounded like she was venting and kind of being honest about, I think that maybe she was ashamed at the kind of adulation, and so she wanted to make it clear that she's not this hero. She's doing it for her own reason and for her own purpose, and to make that clear. But it seemed like she's she still had that kind of resolve, and she still seemed that she's intent on seeing this through. So I didn't sense really any shame. The episode. I mean, this episode has some of the best of The Walking Dead and some of the worst of The Walking Dead. Some of the best. It has great performances. They get the action right at times. And in this, the action was really as good as it can be, when there's not a tiger involved. But it just suffers from logical issues. And again, just shit writing that is frustrating. No, some of the writing is amazing. Simon's dialogue is great. The scene with Maggie's dialogue is fantastic in this episode. So you get some of the dialogue is awesome, but the just logic of it is frustrating as hell, because you feel like you put so much effort into other aspects of the show. You just think just run this by a couple people, see if it makes sense. And there's not like you can't write. If you have an idea, it's kind of like the line from earlier. That with Sadiq, and I'm forgetting the woman's name. But if you really wanted her to say that line, which I admit is a great line, then you can come up with a better way to make that work. And same thing with a lot of this show. It's like if you wanted to have tainted walkers, find a better way to do it. But the way that they go about it just makes no sense, and it's just frustrating. So my final rating is, the first half I would have given an 8.5, a second half a 4. I'm going to give it a 6.5, which is still very generous for me right now. So I'm going to go with 6.5 for the episode.
I mean, if you wanted to make a perfect episode, all they needed to do was extend the fight out about another 10 or 15 minutes, and the episode would have been near perfect. Plot holes aside and shoddy decision and writing aside, I really enjoyed this. I was hoping that this was going to start pushing us towards the conclusion of the Savior storyline, and we were going to get some more iconic moments for the comic book, which I won't spoil for anybody. Some quick hints how they could have done this a little bit better. And I'm not a writer, obviously. We could have had 1 or 2 walkers come, maybe kill 1 or 2 people. All right, so plot foiled. We could have had Henry walk up to the gate and start firing at Saviors, and Jared grab the gun, pull it through because the God knows it was big enough, pull it through and shoot the lock off. And now the Saviors are free without him opening up the gate. There was a few things that I would have changed. I love the battle, so I'm going to base it off of that. I'm on the fence about the Terra tease. Is she infected? Is she not? Do I even care? The Nightwalkers went a little long for me, slightly unbelievable. I'm not sure why you're going to put Irot in a cage just to let her go 5 minutes later. A lot of this stuff didn't make sense, but it didn't ruin it for me. I'm still going to give the episode a solid 8 for the battle alone.
I too enjoyed the battle. I too had a lot of problems with this episode. I've still in love with the show, despite all of its shortcomings, despite all of the problems, I'm still in love with the show. And I still think that there are great performances every week. The problem is they overshadow those great performances with poor writing or poor decision-making that I just have too hard of a time rationalizing. That's something that is unique to this season. I mean, they've done some of it in seasons past, but it's been running strong this season. And I'm hoping that the last few weeks here, they really kind of tighten that up a little bit and we get some amazing closure to what's been going on, because they really can't cliffhang us again on the Savior storyline. They've really got to come to an end, I think, this season. That doesn't mean that Negan has to end, but the Saviors themselves, it just can't keep carrying. It's kind of like the stuff with the governor and the prisoner and everything. You hit a point where you need to move on to keep the story running, and they've reached that point with the Saviors. That being said, there was enough to keep me interested in liking this to give it a 7.5. I really did enjoy it. I had a good time watching it, but hopefully they don't keep trying to just browbeat us with some of the decisions that they made in this episode. If it continues to go that way, the ratings might start to drop. But I do hold out hope that there's going to be some great things. And the battle was a step in the absolute right direction. Probably number 3 for me in battles all time for The Walking Dead. And that's going to do it for this episode of The Walking Dead Underground, where we talk about Season 8, Episode 13, Do Not Send Us Astray. We're going to give it a 7.5 from The Walking Dead Underground. Go check it out. Get ready. 3 episodes left of this season, and there's certainly going to be something big coming. I can't wait for it. Neither can the rest of us. I'm Igrihe. With me have been my co-hosts Cinik and Ryan. We had a blast bringing this to you this week. We'll be back soon with more Walking Dead Underground and more Walking Dead coverage. Until then, you can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/CINIKRADIO. You can find us on Twitter at CINIKRADIO. You can find us on Instagram at CINIKRADIO. And you can find us on the internet at CINIKRADIO.com. Also, go and check out The Walking Dead Underground on Facebook. More than 40,000 members with all the news, memes, humor, and fun you could want about The Walking Dead. All you have to do is go to Facebook and search for The Walking Dead Underground. Please share, like, listen, subscribe, and give this to all your friends. We love every listen we get to. And until next time, don't get captured.
Follow the podcast on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and at thewalkingdeadunderground.com. Join us in our fight against the saviors.